5 years had passed since Jake Morrison first spotted the alien ship near Earth's moon. The world had changed in ways that surprised everyone, especially the Zaphirians who continued watching from hidden positions throughout the solar system. Admiral Susan Blake stood on the bridge of humanity's first interstellar vessel, the New Horizon. The ship looked nothing like the primitive rockets humans had used just decades earlier. Sleek and powerful, it incorporated technology reverse-engineered from debris recovered after the alien scout ship's cloaking failure. Human engineers had studied every fragment, learning secrets that advanced their science by centuries. "Final systems check complete," reported her navigation officer. "We are ready for humanity's first jump to another star system." Blake nodded, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. Humanity had united after learning about the alien threat. Nations that had fought each other for generations now worked together, pooling resources and knowledge to prepare for whatever was coming. The results amazed even the most optimistic scientists. Dr. Marcus Webb worked in his laboratory beneath the Nevada desert, surrounded by weapons that seemed pulled from science fiction movies. His team had taken the alien technology in directions its original creators never imagined. Where the Zaphirians built reliable but predictable systems, humans created chaotic improvements that somehow worked better than the originals. "The new particle beam array is ready for testing," Webb announced to his assistants. "If our calculations are correct, this should cut through any known material in the galaxy." Webb had started his career studying theoretical physics, but the alien threat had turned him into humanity's chief weapons designer. He approached the job with the same creativity that had made humans dangerous throughout their history. Every system could be improved, every weakness could become a strength, and every rule could be broken if breaking it gave an advantage. On Earth's surface, President Elena Rodriguez addressed the United Nations in what had become a daily briefing on humanity's progress. The old divisions between countries had not disappeared, but they mattered less now that everyone faced the same external threat. Humans had always been at their best when fighting for survival. "Our deep space monitors have detected increased alien activity near the outer planets," Rodriguez reported to the assembly. "Intelligence suggests they are preparing for a more direct approach after their weather manipulation campaign failed to break our civilization." The Zaphirian weather attacks had indeed failed, though not in ways Emperor Zixon had expected. Instead of collapsing under pressure, human societies had adapted and grown stronger. The storms and power failures had forced engineers to build better systems. The communication breakdowns had pushed computer scientists to create networks that could not be disrupted. Every attack had taught humanity valuable lessons about defending themselves. Emperor Zixon floated in his palace chambers, reading reports that made no sense according to everything the Empire knew about primitive species. The humans should have destroyed themselves by now. Instead, they were thriving in ways that defied Zaphirian understanding of how civilizations developed. "Impossible," Zixon muttered, as he reviewed footage of human cities. Where his scientists had predicted riots and collapse, they found organized evacuation systems and emergency protocols that worked flawlessly. Where they had expected panic, they found determination and cooperation on a scale no Zaphirian world had ever achieved. The Emperor's military advisors had recommended direct action, but Zixon hesitated. The Empire had always succeeded through superior technology and careful planning. Humans possessed neither advantage, yet somehow they were not only surviving but advancing at an impossible rate. Something was wrong with the situation, but Zixon could not identify what. Colonel Amy Rodriguez led her fighter squadron through the asteroid belt, hunting for the alien observation posts that intelligence had located throughout the solar system. Her ships looked like human designs from the outside, but the engines and weapons came from technology humanity had never invented on its own. "Target acquired," reported her wingman over the communication channel. "Zaphirian spy probe, bearing 27 Mark IV. Amy smiled grimly as she locked onto the alien device. The probe was sophisticated and well hidden, but human sensors could now detect Zaphirian technology almost as easily as the aliens could hide it. The electromagnetic signatures that had once seemed impossible to track now stood out like beacons to human instruments. "All units, attack formation," Amy ordered. "Show these aliens what happens when they spy on humanity." The human fighters struck with precision that shocked the Zaphirian observers. The spy probe exploded in a burst of exotic particles, its destruction visible to sensors throughout the solar system. More importantly, the attack had been coordinated with similar strikes against 17 other observation posts, eliminating the Empire's ability to monitor human activities. Dr. Kevin Park made his breakthrough while studying the wreckage of a Zaphirian supply depot that humans had raided near Jupiter. The alien faster-than-light drive was elegant and efficient, but Park saw ways to improve it that the original designers had never considered. The problem is that they think in straight lines, Park explained to his research team. Their technology follows logical patterns, but logic is not always the fastest path to a solution. Park's modifications to the Zaphirian FTL system reduced travel time by 60%, while using less energy than the original design. The improvements came from human intuition and willingness to try combinations that made no sense according to established physics. Where Zaphirians built systems that worked reliably for thousands of years, humans built systems that worked better right now. Captain Maria Santos became the first human to achieve faster-than-light travel when she piloted the modified New Horizon to Alpha Centauri in just 3 weeks. The journey that should have taken months by Zaphirian standards had become a quick trip that opened the entire galaxy to human exploration. "This is Captain Santos reporting successful arrival at Alpha Centauri," she transmitted back to Earth. "The modifications are working perfectly, and we have detected signs of Zaphirian activity in this system as well." Santos had volunteered for the mission knowing she might not return. Humans had always been willing to take risks that other species considered insane, and that willingness was becoming their greatest advantage in the conflict with the Empire. The Zaphirians discovered that their own technology was being turned against them when human cyber attacks began penetrating their networks. What should have been impossible became routine as human programmers found weaknesses in systems that had been secure for millennia. Commander Coolnecks watched his base's computers failing one by one as human viruses spread through networks that no primitive species should have been able to access. The attacks were not sophisticated by Zaphirian standards, but they worked because they ignored the rules that governed how computer systems were supposed to function. "How are they doing this?" Coolnecks demanded of his technical staff. "Their computers are chaos. Their programming is random, and their networks make no logical sense. How can such primitive systems defeat our advanced security?" The answer came from his chief engineer, who had been studying human technology for months. "That is exactly why they are succeeding," the engineer reported. "Our security assumes that attackers will follow logical patterns, but humans do not think logically. They try impossible solutions that work precisely because they should be impossible." The revelation terrified Coolnecks more than any direct military threat. The Empire had always succeeded by being more advanced than its enemies, but humans were advancing in directions that Zaphirian science had never explored. They were not becoming more like the Empire. They were becoming something entirely different. Admiral Blake prepared to launch Operation Prometheus as human forces gathered for their first major offensive against Zaphirian positions. The plan called for simultaneous attacks on 3 different star systems using tactics and technology that the aliens would not expect or understand. "All ships report ready," Blake announced from her flagship. "Remember, we are not trying to match their technology. We are going to show them what human creativity can accomplish when our species is threatened." The operation succeeded beyond all expectations. Human forces struck Zaphirian outposts with precision and ferocity that left the aliens stunned. Ships that should have been inferior proved superior through modifications that made no sense by Empire standards. Tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare achieved victory after victory. For the first time in millennia, the Zaphirian Empire faced an enemy that could not only resist their attacks, but defeat them in open battle. Emperor Zixon realized too late that humanity's apparent weaknesses were actually strengths that his people had never learned to understand or counter. Captain Vexistar floated in the command chamber of his scout ship, watching the blue and green planet spin slowly on his screens. The third world from the local star looked beautiful, but the life forms on it seemed doomed. His long fingers moved across the control surface as he gathered more data about the creatures that called themselves humans. The Zaphirian Empire had been watching this species for 3 of their years now. What Vextar saw made him shake his head in disgust. These humans spent most of their time fighting each other. They had divided their world into hundreds of territories and constantly argued over borders, resources, and ideas. Even worse, they were poisoning their own planet with waste and chemicals. Foolish creatures. Vextar muttered to himself as he watched news feeds from the human global network. Wars raged on multiple continents while their ice caps melted and oceans rose. Any intelligent species would have learned to work together by now, but humans seemed too stupid to save themselves. The scout ship hung invisible in space, protected by Zaphirian cloaking technology that humans could not detect. Vextar had orders to study the planet and report back to Emperor Zixon about whether these beings posed any threat to the Empire. So far, the answer seemed clear. Humans would destroy themselves within a few hundred years, maybe less. But the planet itself was valuable. Earth sat near 3 important jump points that connected to other star systems. The world had vast oceans of water, deposits of rare metals, and a perfect distance from its star for Zaphirian colonies. Once the humans were gone, the Empire could claim this prize without effort. Still, Vextar felt curious about some things he observed. Despite their wars and pollution, humans kept trying to explore space. They had built a small station that orbited their world, and primitive ships that could barely leave their atmosphere. Their technology was thousands of years behind Zaphirian science, but they kept pushing forward anyway. Commander Jake Morrison floated through the International Space Station, checking systems and watching Earth turn below him. The view never got old, even after 6 months in orbit, but lately something felt wrong. Solar activity had increased beyond normal levels, and strange electromagnetic readings kept appearing on their instruments. "Jake, you need to see this," called Dr. Lisa Chen from the research module. She worked on quantum computing experiments that might someday help humanity travel to other worlds. Her dark hair floated around her face as she studied data streams. On multiple screens, Jake pushed off a wall and glided over to her workstation. The numbers and graphs meant little to him, but Lisa's worried expression told him enough. "What is it?" "These energy patterns don't match anything in our databases," Lisa said, pointing at wavy lines on her display. "Solar flares follow certain rules, but this looks almost artificial, like someone is causing the disruptions on purpose." Down on Earth's surface, General Frank Miller sat in a bunker deep beneath Colorado, reviewing reports from military installations around the world. Weather satellites showed hurricane systems forming in impossible patterns. Communications networks failed at critical moments during international crises. Power grids suffered blackouts that engineers could not explain. Miller had spent 30 years in the military and learned to trust his instincts. Something was targeting Earth's infrastructure, but no human nation had technology advanced enough to cause these problems. The attack seemed designed to push humanity toward economic collapse and social chaos. "Sir, we have another incident," reported his aide, handing him a tablet with breaking news. A massive solar storm had knocked out satellite networks across Asia, leaving billions of people without internet or phone service. Food distribution systems failed, hospitals lost power, and riots started in major cities. Miller studied the data and noticed the same pattern he had seen before. Each disaster happened at the worst possible moment, when humans were already stressed by other problems. If he did not know better, he would think someone wanted to drive his species extinct. Captain Vextar watched the chaos on Earth with satisfaction. The Zaphirian weather control systems were working perfectly, creating storms and solar flares that looked natural but struck at key moments. Soon these humans would face too many crises to handle, and their fragile civilization would crumble. The Uronda plan had been Emperor Zixon's idea. Rather than waste resources on direct military action, the Empire would simply accelerate humanity's self-destruction. A few carefully timed disasters would push their primitive societies past the breaking point. Within decades, Earth would be empty and ready for colonization. Vexatar prepared to return to Zaphirian space with his final report when alarms suddenly filled his command chamber. The scout ship's cloaking system was failing, damaged by a solar storm that his own people had created. Emergency protocols activated as the vessel became visible to human detection systems. Jake Morrison was conducting routine observations when bright lights flashed outside the space station's windows. For a few seconds, he could see the outline of something huge and metallic hanging in the darkness near Earth's moon. Then the object vanished again, but not before the station's cameras had recorded everything. "Lisa, drop what you are doing and look at this," Jake called out, his voice tight with excitement and fear. The footage showed a ship unlike anything humans had ever built. Its smooth curves and glowing panels suggested technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. Lisa studied the images with growing amazement. "This proves we are not alone," she whispered. "But why were they hiding from us?" General Miller received the space station's transmission within hours. The video showed clear evidence of an alien spacecraft watching Earth. Miller felt his worst fears confirmed. The mysterious disasters plaguing humanity were not natural events or human attacks. Someone from another world was deliberately trying to destroy his species. "Get me the president," Miller ordered his staff. "We need to prepare for the possibility that we are under attack by forces we do not understand." Captain Vexistar limped back towards Zaphirian space in his damaged scout ship, knowing he had failed in his mission. The humans had seen him, which meant they now knew about alien life. Worse, his ship's computers showed that Earth's electromagnetic fields had somehow caused the cloaking failure. These primitive beings had technology that could interfere with Empire systems. Emperor Zixon would not be pleased to learn that the mission had been compromised. The humans were supposed to remain ignorant of the Empire's existence until their civilization collapsed completely. Now they would have time to prepare defenses and develop countermeasures. But Vextar still believed the outcome would not change. Humans were a violent, divided species that could barely manage their own world. Even if they knew about the Zaphirian Empire, what could they possibly do against a civilization that controlled 3 star systems and had mastered faster than light travel? The captain set course for home, confident that the Empire's next phase would succeed where subtle manipulation had failed. Soon the humans would learn what happened to species that occupied worlds the Zaphirians wanted for themselves. The Zaphirian Empire had ruled 3 star systems for over 2,000 years, but nothing in their history had prepared them for dealing with humans. What had started as a simple extermination mission had become a nightmare that kept Emperor Zixon awake during his rest cycles. Colonel Amy Rodriguez pushed her fighter through the debris field that had once been a Zaphirian supply depot. The raid had taken only 4 hours, but the results would echo throughout the galaxy. Her squadron had destroyed enough equipment and supplies to support an entire Zaphirian fleet, using tactics that made no sense according to any military manual ever written. "Control, this is Eagle Leader," Amy transmitted to the human command. "Ship hiding behind a nearby asteroid. Target neutralized, all packages delivered successfully." The packages were Amy's favorite part of these missions. While Zaphirian commanders focused on protecting their most valuable equipment, humans had learned to target the systems that seemed least important. Amy's team had planted explosive charges in the depot's waste processing center, water recycling plant, and food storage areas. When those systems failed, the entire base became uninhabitable within days. Dr. Kevin Park continued his work improving alien technology, but his latest project would have horrified any Zaphirian engineer. Park was combining human nuclear weapons with Zaphirian antimatter containment systems, creating bombs that could destroy entire moons. The Empire had never developed such weapons because they considered them too dangerous and unpredictable. The beauty of this design is its complete unpredictability, Park explained to his assistant while fine-tuning the containment fields. "Even we do not know exactly what will happen when it detonates. The Zaphirians will have no way to defend against something we do not fully understand ourselves." Park's weapons violated every principle of safe engineering that the Empire held sacred. Zaphirians built systems that worked the same way every time, with predictable results and minimal risk of accidents. Humans built systems that might work brilliantly or might explode in their faces, but either way would surprise their enemies. Captain Maria Santos had become humanity's most successful deep space commander, leading raids throughout Zaphirian territory that left the aliens confused and demoralized. Her ship, the Enterprise, looked like a standard human vessel from the outside, but every system had been modified beyond recognition. Santos stood on her bridge watching 3 Zaphirian patrol ships searching for her in the wrong location. Her crew had learned to think like their enemies while retaining the unpredictability that made humans so dangerous. They knew where the aliens would look and made sure to be somewhere else entirely. "Weapons ready, Captain," reported her tactical officer. "We have clear shots at all 3 targets." Santos nodded and gave the order that had become her trademark. "Fire everything at once, then get us out of here before they figure out what happened." The Enterprise's weapons array included particle beams, missile launchers, and devices that Park's team had invented specifically for confusing Zaphirian sensors. The alien ships found themselves under attack from directions that their instruments said were empty space, using weapons that should not have existed according to Empire. Science Admiral John Carter coordinated humanity's growing fleet from his flagship, the Destiny. The ship served as both command center and symbol of how far humans had advanced since first contact with the Zaphirians. Every system incorporated lessons learned from captured alien technology, but improved through human ingenuity. "Admiral, we have reports coming in from all sectors," announced his communications officer. "Our forces are achieving success ratios that exceed all predictions." Carter studied the tactical displays showing human operations throughout 3 star systems. His forces were outnumbered and outgunned according to traditional military calculations. But they were winning battles through methods that no military academy had ever taught. Humans fought dirty, took insane risks, and refused to follow any rules except victory at any cost. The success came from understanding that Zaphirians expected their enemies to behave like civilized beings. The Empire had developed tactics for fighting other advanced civilizations that valued efficiency and minimized casualties. They had no experience dealing with a species that would sacrifice entire ships to destroy single enemy targets, or commanders who made decisions based on intuition rather than computer analysis. General Rebecca Torres led humanity's ground forces in preparing defenses for Earth and the colonies that humans had established throughout the solar system. Her troops trained for battles that might never come. But Torres knew that preparation would mean the difference between survival and extinction if the Empire decided on direct invasion. "Remember, these aliens have never faced guerrilla warfare," Torres told her officers during a strategy meeting. "They control territory through superior technology and overwhelming force. They do not know how to fight an enemy that refuses to defend fixed positions or engage in conventional battles." Torres had studied every piece of intelligence about Zaphirian military doctrine, and she found the same weakness in all their strategies. The Empire won battles by being predictable and reliable, using proven tactics that had succeeded for centuries. Humans would win by being completely unpredictable and willing to try anything that might work. Captain Ryan Cooper had become famous throughout human space for missions that Zaphirian commanders considered suicide attacks. Cooper's ships were fast, lightly armed, and designed to be abandoned at a moment's notice. His crews volunteered for operations that had minimal chances of survival, but maximum potential for disrupting enemy operations. "Target acquired," Cooper announced, as his ship approached a Zaphirian command vessel. "All hands prepare for ramming." Speed. Cooper's tactic was simple and terrifying. Rather than engage in traditional space combat, his ships would accelerate to maximum velocity and crash directly into enemy vessels. The collisions destroyed both ships, but they also eliminated Zaphirian commanders and equipment that could not be easily replaced. The Empire had no defense against such attacks, because no civilized species had ever used them before. Zaphirian culture valued individual life and expensive equipment too highly to waste either in suicide missions. Humans viewed such sacrifices as necessary prices for protecting their species and their freedom. Dr. Sandra Kim had taken over Park's weapons development program and pushed human military technology in directions that would have given Zaphirian scientists nightmares. Her latest creation was a computer virus that could rewrite the basic programming of any system it infected, turning Zaphirian equipment against its users. "The virus learns and adapts as it spreads," Kim explained to military commanders who would deploy her creation. It will study Zaphirian systems and find weaknesses we never knew existed. The aliens will literally be defeated by their own technology. Kim's virus represented everything that made human technology so dangerous to the Empire, where Zaphirians built stable systems that performed the same functions for thousands of years. Humans created programs that evolved and improved themselves. The aliens had no experience fighting enemies whose weapons became more dangerous over time. Commander Kexmol received orders from Emperor Zixon to eliminate the human threat, using whatever force was necessary. The Empire's patience with these primitive beings had reached its end. Kexmol assembled the largest fleet in Zaphirian history, determined to prove that superior technology and overwhelming numbers could still defeat human creativity. "These humans fight like animals," Kexmol told his officers as the Grand Fleet prepared to depart for Earth. "They have no honor, no respect for civilized warfare, and no understanding of how proper battles should be conducted. We will show them what happens when primitive savages challenge the Empire." Kexmol's fleet included over 500 warships, enough firepower to sterilize entire worlds. The commander expected the coming battle to last only hours, with human forces surrendering once they realized the futility of resistance. The Empire had never lost a major engagement, and these humans would not be the first to break that record. Captain Derek Stone led humanity's intelligence operations against Zaphirian forces, gathering information that would be crucial for the coming battle. Stone's ships were invisible to Empire sensors and staffed by crews trained in techniques that no other species had ever developed. They could infiltrate enemy formations, steal vital data, and escape before anyone realized they had been there. "We have complete intelligence on the enemy fleet composition," Stone reported to Admiral Carter. "Numbers, weapons, command structure, and tactical doctrine. The Zaphirians are coming with everything they have, but they are still thinking like Zaphirians." Stone's data revealed that the Empire was making the same mistake it had made from the beginning. Kexmol's forces were organized according to traditional military principles that assumed enemies would fight conventional battles using predictable strategies. The Zaphirians had no idea how to counter an opponent that refused to follow any rules except winning. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine whether humanity survived as a free species or joined the long list of civilizations that had fallen to Zaphirian expansion. Grand Fleet Commander Kexmol had never seen anything like the battle that raged around Earth's moon. His 500 warships should have swept aside human resistance in a matter of hours, but the fighting had continued for 3 days with no clear victor. Worse, the humans were actually winning through methods that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Admiral John Carter stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching displays that showed the impossible becoming routine. Human ships darted between Zaphirian battle formations like insects, too small and fast to target effectively, but deadly enough to cripple vessels 10 times their size. His forces were outnumbered 5-1, but they were winning because they refused to fight the battle their enemies expected. "Sir, the Enterprise reports another successful ramming attack," announced Carter's tactical officer. "That makes 12 enemy command ships destroyed using Cooper's tactics." Carter nodded grimly. Ryan Cooper had died in the first ramming attack, but his sacrifice had inspired dozens of other captains to follow his example. The humans were trading single ships for irreplaceable Zaphirian command vessels, disrupting enemy coordination and spreading panic through the Empire fleet. No Zaphirian commander knew how to respond to enemies who treated death as just another weapon. Captain Maria Santos piloted her fighter through the wreckage of a Zaphirian battleship, searching for survivors to rescue. The aliens had surrendered after human boarding parties disabled their weapons and life support systems, but Santos had orders to treat prisoners with the same respect humans wanted for their own captured soldiers. "This is rescue ship Angel 1, Santos transmitted on Zaphirian frequencies. "We are here to provide medical assistance to anyone who needs it." The alien survivors floated helplessly in the debris field, their advanced life support suits keeping them alive but unable to maneuver. Santos and her crew pulled them aboard despite the risk that some might be armed or hostile. Humans had learned that showing mercy to defeated enemies often convinced others to surrender rather than fight to the death. General Rebecca Torres watched the battle from her command bunker on Earth's surface, coordinating ground defenses that might never be needed. The space battle would determine whether Zaphirian troops ever reached the planet, but Torres had prepared for every possibility, including the complete destruction of humanity's orbital fleet. "All defensive positions report ready," Torres announced to her staff. "If any enemy forces reach the surface, they will find that Earth is not as defenseless as they assume." Torres had turned the entire planet into a trap, designed to destroy any invasion force that managed to land. Hidden weapons installations covered every major city, while underground tunnel systems would allow human forces to appear anywhere without warning. The Zaphirians expected to find a primitive world protected only by crude weapons, but they would discover that every human on Earth was prepared to fight for their species' survival. Dr. Sandra Kim monitored her computer virus as it spread through captured Zaphirian systems, learning their weaknesses and turning their own technology against them. The virus had already caused 3 enemy ships to fire on their own forces, while others found their navigation systems leading them directly into human ambushes. "The virus is exceeding all performance parameters," Kim reported to Admiral Carter during a brief communication window. "Zaphirian computer security is designed to stop conventional attacks, but they have no defense against programs that rewrite themselves as they spread." Kim's creation represented the fundamental difference between human and Zaphirian approaches to technology. The Empire built systems that worked reliably for thousands of years without change, while humans created programs that evolved and improved themselves in real time. The virus was becoming smarter and more dangerous with every system it infected, learning new ways to exploit weaknesses that its creators had never imagined. Commander Kexmal felt panic creeping into his thoughts as he watched his carefully planned battle turn into chaos. Human forces refused to engage in formation combat or defend fixed positions. They appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating effect, then vanished before his ships could respond. Every tactical doctrine that had served the Empire for centuries was useless against enemies who ignored all rules of civilized warfare. "Sir, we have lost contact with battle groups 7 through 12. Reported his communications officer. "Human forces have disabled their command ships using those ramming attacks." Kexmal stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. The humans were actually winning a battle against the largest fleet in Zaphirian history. They had inferior numbers, primitive technology, and no formal military training, yet they were destroying his forces through sheer audacity and willingness to take risks that no sane commander would consider. Captain Derek Stone led his intelligence team in a desperate mission to capture a Zaphirian admiral alive. Human forces needed to understand how the Empire's military command structure worked, and Stone's people were the only ones with the skills to infiltrate an enemy flagship during active combat. "Remember, we need this one breathing," Stone told his boarding party as their stealth ship approached the Zaphirian command vessel. "The information he carries could end this war before it spreads to other star systems." Stone's team had trained for missions that most militaries would consider impossible. They could move through enemy ships like ghosts, disable security systems that should have been impenetrable, and complete objectives that required perfect coordination under the worst possible conditions. The Zaphirians had never faced opponents with such specialized skills. The boarding operation succeeded beyond all expectations. Stone's team captured Admiral Tixvar, along with his complete strategic database, providing humanity with detailed intelligence about Empire military operations throughout the galaxy. More importantly, they learned about other species that had been conquered or destroyed by Zaphirian expansion. Admiral Carter studied the captured intelligence reports with growing amazement and horror. The Empire had exterminated dozens of species over the past millennium, always using the same methods they had tried against humanity: weather manipulation, bioweapons, economic sabotage, and finally direct military action. Every civilization had fallen within decades of first contact with Zaphirian scouts. "They are not just trying to conquer us," Carter realized as he read through the files. "They are trying to wipe us out completely, just like they did to all the others." The intelligence revealed that humanity was unique, not because they were stronger or smarter than other species, but because they refused to behave according to Zaphirian expectations. Every other civilization had tried to match Empire technology, and tactics, fighting conventional battles that they were destined to lose. Humans had survived by being completely unconventional. Captain Amy Rodriguez led her squadron in the final push against Kexmol's flagship, knowing that capturing or destroying the Grand Fleet's command ship would end the battle. Her fighters had been modified beyond recognition, carrying weapons that Kim's team had designed specifically for penetrating Zaphirian shields and armor. "All units, this is Eagle Leader," Amy transmitted as her squadron approached the massive enemy vessel. "Remember, we are not just fighting for Earth. We are fighting for every species these aliens have destroyed over the past 1,000 years." Amy's attack came from 6 different directions simultaneously, using tactics that would have been impossible for any other species to coordinate. Human pilots could make split-second decisions and adapt their plans in real time, responding to changing conditions faster than Zaphirian computers could calculate responses. The Zaphirian flagship's shields failed under the coordinated assault, allowing human boarding parties to penetrate the hull and disable critical systems from within. Commander Kexmol found his command center filled with armed humans who had appeared seemingly from nowhere, their weapons trained on his bridge crew. "Surrender your fleet, and we will guarantee the safety of all survivors," Amy announced as she removed her helmet. "Continue fighting and we will destroy every ship in your formation." Kexmol looked around his bridge at the humans who had somehow infiltrated the most secure ship in the Zaphirian Empire. These beings were nothing like the primitive savages he had expected to face. They fought with discipline and coordination that matched the Empire's best forces, but combined with creativity and flexibility that no Zaphirian could match. "How did you do this?" Kexmol asked in amazement. "Your technology is inferior, your numbers are smaller, and your species has no military tradition. How did you defeat the Grand Fleet?" Amy smiled as she considered the question. "We did not try to become better Zaphirians. We stayed human, and that made all the difference. The Grand Fleet's surrender sent shockwaves throughout the Empire. For the first time in over 2,000 years, Zaphirian forces had been defeated in a major battle by an enemy they had considered primitive. Emperor Zixon received reports that seemed impossible according to everything his people knew about warfare and technology. But the humans were not finished. Captain Derek Stone's intelligence team had provided them with complete data about Zaphirian military positions throughout the Empire. President Michelle Davis stood before the United Earth Assembly, holding intelligence reports that would reshape the future of the galaxy. The captured Zaphirian databases had revealed the locations of every Empire world, military installation, and subjugated species. More importantly, they had shown humanity the true scope of Zaphirian crimes against other civilizations. For over 1,000 years, the Zaphirian Empire has systematically exterminated any species they encountered, Davis announced to the assembled representatives. They have destroyed 43 different civilizations and enslaved countless others. We now have the power to stop them permanently. The decision facing humanity was unlike any in their history. They could negotiate a peace treaty that would protect Earth and its colonies, or they could launch a campaign to liberate every world under Zaphirian control. Davis knew what choice her species would make, because humans had never been able to ignore suffering they had the power to prevent. Admiral Patricia Young prepared for humanity's largest military operation as fleets gathered at secret bases throughout the solar system. Operation Liberation would strike at every Zaphirian stronghold simultaneously, using tactics and technology that the Empire still did not understand despite their recent defeats. "This will not be a war of conquest," Young told her commanders during the final briefing. "We are not trying to build a human empire. Our goal is to free every species under Zaphirian control and give them the chance to govern themselves." Young's strategy relied on the same principles that had won the battle for Earth. Human forces would appear where the enemy least expected them, strike with overwhelming force, then move on to the next target before Zaphirian reinforcements could arrive. The Empire's centralized command structure would work against them, as each victory would disrupt their ability to coordinate defenses. Captain Derek Stone led the first wave of attacks, targeting Zaphirian communication networks throughout their territory. His stealth ships carried viruses that Sandra Kim had designed specifically to cripple Empire computer systems, turning their own technology into weapons against them. All teams, commence Operation Silence, Stone transmitted as his forces reached their targets. Let us make sure the Empire cannot call for help. Stone's attacks succeeded beyond all expectations. Within hours, Zaphirian worlds throughout 3 star systems lost contact with each other and with their central command. The Empire's carefully coordinated military machine became a collection of isolated units that could not communicate or coordinate their defenses. Dr. Sandra Kim watched her latest computer virus spread through Zaphirian networks with satisfaction. This program was different from her earlier creations, designed not to destroy but to liberate. The virus would identify any enslaved populations under Empire control and provide them with information about human rescue operations. The virus is making contact with subjugated species on 17 different worlds, Kim reported to Admiral Young. They are receiving instructions on how to disable Zaphirian control systems and prepare for liberation. Kim's program represented everything that made humanity unique among galactic civilizations. Where other species might have used their technological advantages to conquer and rule, humans were using their abilities to free others from oppression. The virus was not a weapon of war, but a tool of liberation that would help enslaved beings reclaim their freedom. Captain Maria Santos commanded the rescue fleet that approached Zaphirian Prime, the first world on humanity's liberation list. The planet held over 2 billion enslaved beings from 12 different species, all working to support Zaphirian expansion. Santos knew that freeing them would require precise timing and careful coordination with local resistance movements. This is Captain Santos of the Human Liberation Fleet. She transmitted on frequencies that Kim's virus had identified as safe. We are here to help you reclaim your world. Please follow the instructions you have received and prepare for immediate action. Santos watched her tactical displays as the planet's surface erupted in coordinated uprisings. Enslaved populations attacked Zaphirian control centers with weapons they had built in secret, while human forces eliminated the Empire's orbital defenses. Within 6 hours, Zaphirian Prime was free for the first time in over 300 years. Emperor Zixon floated in his command chamber, watching his empire collapse with a speed that seemed impossible. Human forces were appearing throughout Zaphirian territory, liberating worlds that had been under Empire control for centuries. Worse, the freed populations were joining the human cause, providing intelligence and resources that made each subsequent liberation easier. How many worlds have we lost? Zixon asked his remaining advisors, though he dreaded the answer. 43 systems have fallen to human forces in the past 30 days, replied his military coordinator. Another dozen are under attack, and we have lost contact with our outer territories. The humans are moving faster than we can respond. Zixon struggled to understand how this had happened. The Empire had ruled through superior technology and overwhelming force for over 2 millennia. No species had ever successfully resisted Zaphirian expansion, yet these primitive humans had not only defeated his forces, but turned his own subjects against him. General Rebecca Torres led ground forces. On Kythera, a world where the Zaphirians had enslaved an entire species for use as biological computers. The aliens had been surgically modified to process information for Empire systems, their natural intelligence perverted into tools for their oppressors. Medical teams are reporting that the modifications can be reversed, Torres announced to her commanders. The Kytherans can be restored to their original forms and returned to their families. Torres had seen many horrors during humanity's war against the Empire, but nothing had affected her as deeply as discovering what the Zaphirians did to enslaved populations. Some species had been bred for specific purposes, others had been genetically modified, and still others had been reduced to nothing more than organic machines. Every liberation revealed new crimes that strengthened human resolve. Commander Lisa Park took command of the human vessel Destiny as it approached the Zaphirian capital world. The massive planet held the Empire's central government and military command, protected by defenses that had never been tested in battle. Park knew that capturing the capital would end the war and free billions of enslaved beings throughout the galaxy. All ships report ready for final assault, Park announced to the Liberation Fleet. Remember, we are not here to destroy, but to free. Every being on that planet deserves the chance to choose their own future. Park's forces included ships from dozens of liberated worlds, each crewed by beings who had suffered under Zaphirian rule. The fleet represented everything humanity had accomplished during their brief time in space. Not the conquest of other species, but their liberation and unification against a common oppressor. The battle for the Zaphirian capital lasted only 12 hours. Human forces and their allies overwhelmed the planet's defenses using tactics that the Empire had never encountered. More importantly, the attack was supported by uprisings among the enslaved populations, who had been waiting centuries for the chance to overthrow their oppressors. Emperor Zixon found himself surrounded by human soldiers in his own throne room, his empire reduced to a single building on a single world. The beings who should have been extinct were instead offering him something no Zaphirian had ever received from a conquered enemy: the chance to surrender with dignity. "We could execute you for the crimes your empire has committed," Admiral Young told the defeated emperor. "Instead, we offer you the opportunity to help rebuild what you have destroyed. Your technical knowledge could help us restore the worlds and species your people have damaged." Zixon looked at the human commander with amazement. These beings had every right to seek revenge for the attempts to destroy their civilization, yet they were offering forgiveness and cooperation. No species in the Empire's history had ever shown such mercy to defeated enemies. "Why?" Zixon asked. "We tried to exterminate your people. We have destroyed countless civilizations. Why would you spare us?" Admiral Young considered the question carefully before answering. "Because we are human, and humans believe that everyone deserves a second chance to do better." The final scenes of the war showed something unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of replacing the Zaphirian Empire with a human one, the liberating forces helped each freed world establish its own government. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to work together, united by their shared experience of oppression and liberation. Commander Lisa Park stood on the observation deck of a space station orbiting New Terra, watching ships from dozens of different species working together to build something that had never existed before. A true galactic community based on cooperation rather than conquest. "Final report from all sectors," announced her communications officer. "The last Zaphirian holdouts have surrendered peacefully. The war is officially over." Park nodded, feeling the weight of history settling around her. Humanity had been provoked by an empire that saw them as primitives fit only for extermination. The Zaphirians had attacked at humanity's weakest moment, expecting easy victory over a divided and chaotic species.